Hi, my name is Pastor Philip Fields. Welcome to It Is Written. Today, I want to talk to you about the war in Israel. It is very clear to us that Hamas, the terrorist group, has started a very intense, serious war with Israel. And Israel has declared that they are at war with Hamas, and they have made decisions that have created an escalation in the Middle East that we haven't seen in 50 years. And so to the day, October 8th, back in 1973, the Yom Kippur War, 50 years to the day, Hamas launched this attack, which included some 1,000 plus soldiers coming into the southern border of Israel through Gaza. And their decision was pure evil. And they have taken hostages who are women and children, literally beheading babies, taking the elderly and others captive, and invading a concert that was being held. Some 300 people. Thousands have been killed, and they are quickly trying to destroy and hurt as many people as they could. And so with that, there was a retraction back into the Gaza Strip by these soldiers. And now Israel is faced with how to reconcile this issue. And so I want to look for a minute about this in the Bible. What does the Bible say about this? And so we look here and we see Jesus trying to ready his disciples about what is to come in Matthew chapter 24. And it says that Jesus departed from the temple and was leaving when his disciples came to show him the temple buildings. And Jesus answered them, "Do you not see all these things? Truly I say to you, not one stone shall be left here upon another that shall not be thrown down." And that prophecy comes to true in AD 70. The temple is destroyed, and that would have been the second time the temple was destroyed. And so as a result of that, the disciples scatter in the early church after Jesus' resurrection. And he goes on and he says, as he sat on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately, saying, "Tell us when all of these things will be, and what will be the sign of your coming and the end of the age?" And Jesus answered them, "Take heed that no one deceives you, for many will come in my name, saying, 'I am the Christ,' and will deceive many. You will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not troubled, for all these things must happen, but the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and epidemics and earthquakes in various places, and all these are the beginning of sorrows. Then they will hand you over to be persecuted and killed, and will kill you, and will be hated by nations, all nations, for my name's sake. There will be many who fall away and betray one another and hate one another. And many false prophets will rise and will deceive many, because iniquity will abound, and the love of many will grow cold. But he who endures to the end shall be saved." And so Jesus is giving them an understanding of what it will be like in the latter days, and as the end of this age is closed out. And so they lived through many of the things that he talks about. The first 300 years of the early church were some of the most intense times for God's people. They were severely persecuted, many of them put to death and martyred. And after that 300 years, Constantine comes on the scene, legalizing Christianity and protecting it to a certain degree. But what ends up happening is that his legalization of Christianity thrust us into the Dark Ages, because from that point on, the church is controlled by the government. And so what we have is, as we are moving into this new phase, is that there are things happening in Israel that are very, very significant. Now let's talk for a second about Israel's enemies. Who are these people? These people are terrorists, and they have one goal: to obliterate the nation of Israel. They want to remove them. Since Israel has resettled the land there, what has happened is that the Ottoman Empire was controlling that part of the world for many years. But if you go back, it doesn't start with the Ottoman Empire. You go back to the book of Joshua, you see very clearly the real estate that God gave the children of Israel as they crossed into the Jordan. And as they crossed that Jordan, they came into the promised land that was promised to them by God. And so they occupied that land until through the years they entered into idolatry and were moved and were scattered. And so in this scattering, they were all over the world and in many different places. And in 1948, they returned and created a state. And the reason this happened is that the British government, the UN, they all decided that the people who were most persecuted during World War II deserved to have their own land and their own place. Well, their return, it was prophesied, and they came back. So they were scattered, that was prophesied, they come back. And now that they've created this state in 1948, which the day after they declared that they were a nation, they are under attack again by these terrorist organizations and states that don't want them there. Well, in that war in 1948, they quickly overcome. They're the minority, and they overcome all of these other people groups. They protect their sovereignty until 1967. They are again attacked by a group of nations surrounding them, and in 6 days, they win the war again. And this time, both the West Bank territory and the Gaza Strip are theirs. But eventually, through concessions, this Hamas terrorist group takes over this Gaza Strip. And so all of these terror groups and cells of evil people are seeking a way to come in and destroy them. And so Israel, through the years, has had to live surrounded by their enemies who are constantly looking for a weakness that they can exploit and ultimately make the world believe that Israel is the terrorist. But we know that not to be true. And so this war is happening because of this invasion. An invasion that was not at all provoked by Israel. An unprovoked war was declared on them by Hamas. The word Hamas is in the book of Genesis. It means violence. And so these are a people of evil nature and violence. They want to destroy, and they want to terrorize. And when you look at that word terrorism, it's to make you afraid. It's to create terror in your mind of the power of evil, the power of darkness. And so this has gone on for a long time now. And the current prime minister of Israel has decided, Benjamin Netanyahu has said very clearly, we are at war and we will obliterate Hamas. Now, the big battle is over Gaza. And so they're trying to clear out the citizens, the people who are living there, the Palestinians, which their group comes from the Philistines. And so what you have is this occupation, if you will, of people groups that aren't God's chosen people. And they're there, and there's always this tension and this strife. So is this the battle that ends all battles? I don't think so. I think that this is a battle. This is a war that will get the attention of the nation of Israel. And so what we're praying is that this current war that's going on will awaken the Jews to the reality of the Messiah, to the reality that they are a people chosen by God, and that they have a redemptive purpose in this hour. Certainly we're praying for their protection. Certainly we're praying even for the protection of the Palestinians, because their people are just caught up in being used by Hamas and these terrorist groups as human shields. And so we want to pray for both sides. But we all always want to pray as God leads for the unfolding of His promise, unfolding of His will, the unfolding of the things that He wants to see happen in this hour. You must understand that Israel only occupies a fraction of what they were promised. They were promised a much bigger territory, but they have given up much of their land to accommodate these people groups. And so, how does all of this start to unfold, and where do we end up? And so I have lots of notes on this, but I really believe that what is happening is very similar to what's happened in the church. Since COVID, there has been a great line of separation within the church. There are those true, sold out, remnant believers who are committed to Christ and the biblical foundation that the Lord has laid in the earth. And then there are those who are progressive, who want only to be Christians in name and not really live out the truth. And so there's this great separation happening in the church. And I see this, that there are nations who are going to rally to support Israel because they see evil for what it is, right? They're going to come in and they're going to support and they're going to defend Israel. Right now, as a whole, we, our nation, our current government, our current administration is doing the right thing to defend them, protect them, and support them as they try to deal with this situation. But there are a lot of other nations, there are a lot of other groups who are rising up in favor of the Palestinians, even in this country, even in our country, even in our own government. We literally have a group of people who hold office in Congress who are speaking out in favor of the Palestinians and in favor of Hamas and the terrorism opposing Israel. So that's what's going to happen, is that ultimately all the nations in the world will turn against Israel. We're not there yet, but you see how this is staging that. Who is in favor of God's people who represent His righteousness in the earth, and who are those who stand against them and represent evil. That's where this all goes eventually. So what can we do? What can we do as believers in this hour? Number one, your prayer life needs to increase. We need to be praying for a massive move and awakening in this country. We need to be praying for God to cause His church, His church to come back to the truth. Secondly, we need to be praying for Israel. We need to be praying for their protection. We need to support them in prayer. We need to pray over their military and their people and believe that this is going to be a redemptive thing, that what was meant for evil can be turned for good. And then we need to be praying for Palestine and these people who are caught in the middle, that they would see that what they've been told and how they've been brainwashed to believe that the nation of Israel is evil. Do you realize that there are people who were trying to give support to the Palestinians? There were Israeli people who were known for being compassionate toward them. They were killed. They were taken hostage. Their lives were destroyed by the very thing that they were trying to support. And so what we have to realize is that we have to pray. And the second thing that we have to do is we have to fight. We have to be willing to stand up. We have to be willing to stand up and fight and speak out. We fight with our voices. We fight by standing up for the truth. We fight by declaring that our government would continue to support Israel and holding them accountable. And we fight over protecting the truth ultimately, that Israel is God's chosen people and that we are to honor His choice. And second, we occupy. We occupy. We occupy places of leadership, places of influence, places where we need to be in government, in the marketplace, in education. We need to be out there spreading this message of the truth that God's chosen people have a very important purpose in these final days, in this millennium, in this generation. And then ultimately, we need to stand with Israel no matter what. We need to stand with Israel, even if our government stands against them, even if other nations rise up against them. We need to stand with Israel. So, the war in Israel, it's biblical. We are seeing God unfold His plan in this hour. And we as His people need to be ready to serve and occupy and do what we know we need to do to advance His kingdom. God bless you. Thank you for tuning in.